Luckily, show my channel here over at SubScribe. You look at the Mary Sue and wonder how it makes money, and then because the U.S. aid stuff that comes out, realize, oh, I wonder if there's some tax tie-in. If your taxes have literally been subsidizing this cancer. And the other thing with the Mary Sue is, when I started reading a long time ago, I kind of stupidly, naively assumed, oh, it's a bunch of women writers, so probably one of them started a blog and started hiring on her girlfriends, and far left wing, but it's just a kind of a grassroots type of thing. No, that could not be further from the truth. It's some big global homogenization company who owns the rights to the Mary Sue. They started it and then they sold it to some other publishing company. It's all like just a BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard type of garbage. And as it turns out, U.S. aid is you're probably going to discover that one way or another, even if it's just like tax breaks or incentives, your taxpayer dollars are subsidizing this kind of garbage, because there's no way there's enough people reading this. The other funny thing is they show him in his leather jacket looking fairly normal, but they don't show him in a dress, or the other characters, the male characters, wearing dresses, which is why probably the watch time is not what it should be. So not too honest, Mary Sue. So the Mary Sue says that Dr. Foreigner hasn't been fired because of wokery, which means the exact opposite. Then the article goes on a virtue signaling rant about gays, blacks, trans, all the Frankfurt School buzzwords du jour that nobody cares about anymore. The wind is just like that. That ship has sailed, where the left wing trying to shame people over all their phobias. It's like you're not getting any blood from that stone. This is why left wing shows fail, because they're not shows. They're preachy and biased, and they're not even able to get their own left wing audience. Of the various shows that come and go, they all would have succeeded if they had only got the SJWs who claim to love this kind of preachy nonsense to simply watch the show. She-Hulk went one season. It's all girl power. Yeah, so how come the ladies didn't watch it? Or the various movies that are female-led, even the Eternals or Charlie's Angels or the Terminator. It's like, hey, those are all girl power movies, and you guys say girls are just the same as boys. They're all the same. Oh, those movies bomb. And then Barbie did well. How come Barbie did well and the other, like, action adventure girl? Oh, because men and women are different. Anyway, these are preachy, and people are really done with preachy. The audience wants to see an Englishman in the role. Same for 007. I know they're toying with the ideas of swapping out an Englishman in the character. They don't want to see a woman or a non-English person, in this case, an African. They don't value diversity, trans, whatever, or men kissing men. All those things are reasons the audience doesn't watch them. And it feels like not enough people are just being honest to tell people that those are not selling points. Very few people actually want to see two guys together. That's a very limited audience, as you saw with that one movie, the Bros movie, which was, all kinds of degenerates saying it like lost $30 million. So if I remember right, with this version of the Doctor, and before this was the flat-chested woman who is actually pretty in real life, but they made as plain Jane and ugly as possible. So in this version, they checked every box, and they had a race-mixed couple with a gay son who dressed like a woman. And then he had some little bit where he was talking about a male-presenting Time Lord. It felt like they were taking crazy pills, and if gender's a social construct in their broken minds, and there's a lot of people who, like, when this fad passes, they're going to be left with what they did to themselves, and I don't think they're going to accept that. So how is there a difference between male and female presenting if it's all just in your mind? It's a social construct. So like, oh, it's horseshit the whole time, obviously. So people are just people, my guy. Things are just like fungible cogs in a globalist commercial zone. They can be replaced one for another. Apparently, AI can tell the sex of somebody just by looking at the eye. The structure is different. And the BLT community is not taking reality. Well, post another selfie asking for affirmation. Looking forward to this fad ending. But I'm not looking forward to whatever the next fad is, because I assume it'll just be a deeper circle of hell. Anyway, the Mary Sue article goes into things I could give a shit about. Racism and homophobia. The problem is, it's not just me that doesn't care about any of this stuff. You, the audience in general, doesn't care. Or rather, now, as the pendulum is starting to swing back a little bit, I'd like to see some humor directed at these people that have been off limits up until now. Non Europeans, the gays, or rather the trans is probably more ripe for humor. Because, to be fair, in the 80s, there probably was some humor at the gays. But, like, the trans is right there to parody, lampoon, and go after. You'd think that would be a hot topic for humor. I'm sure Saturday Night Live will get right on that when they're not calling that Epstein Island guy in the MAGA hat for not who's that, Tom Hanks. God, how does Saturday Night Live stay on the air? Oh, probably your tax dollars by way of some kind of black operation. It's time to start normalizing making fun of groups that have not been made fun of. Everything should be on this table, especially the groups that are off limits, because sacred cows make the best burgers. I was thinking about Saturday Night Live, and a few times it was funny, and one of them was Norm Macdonald, who got fired, and then he got brought back as a guest host, and then he just made fun of Saturday Night Live and the producers of it, because he was like one of the funniest guys on it. And then you look at Saturday Night Live and it's like, it really not as good as you remember. There were bits and skits that were funny, but it was always a left-wing virtue signaling. Anyway, the left-wing approach to storytelling is viewed through a Marxist lens of a message about globalism, which most people are nationalists. I mean, the majority of the audience is nationalist. They might not use the term because they've been brainwashed not to, but subconsciously they know that diversity makes for boring stories because it's very formulaic. You're not allowed to go outside of a certain spectrum of allowed opinions for diversity. Because when the main character is a black, gay, cross-dressing Time Lord, and his friends are a mixed-race couple with a black, gay, cross-dressing kid, lecturing the audience on pronouns, it's not a show about an action adventure and a sci-fi mystery, whatever it is kind of gone into over the years as a famously low-budget show. Back in the old days, it was ridiculous. It was like worse than Star Trek in terms of budget, where they lean up against the wall and the wall shakes, or if you watch them closely, when they have to try to lean up against the wall, they're barely touching it because it's just, styrofoam on plywood. So here's the proof. Take the show and remove all the woke elements. Make everyone actually British by blood and not by piece of paper. Make everyone straight and no lectures about pronouns or whatever's topical. No mixing, no cross-dressing. Then identify whatever your core story is. It might be about some alien coming to Earth who is a cat or needs to eat cats, whatever. Their stories are usually pretty low budget, but that's the story. The people around them, then they solve the mysteries to figure out what's going on, and you're going to need a beautiful Scottish buxom sidekick. I think they had a red-haired Irish girl, like 20 years ago. I kind of vaguely remember tuning in for that. And then after that, there was a blonde, I don't know if she was American, who's been in a lot of things. But like, you had these two beautiful sidekicks, which is great. And just pretend that the audience isn't gay, mixed race, trans, space communists, because they're not. That's why woke shows just fail over and over again. And no, like, they're straw men of like, oh, you all must be Nazis because you don't want to see this kind of stuff. That's another thing that's pushing people away from these shows. The left uses these shows to lecture us on the various phobias that the left wing values or really pretends to value. Because if you're pox or female or one of the gay type of things, but you don't go along with the narrative, suddenly you see how evil, how mean the left can get. We don't believe in most of those concepts of all those kind of phobias, or we think they're positives, not negatives. We don't want trans stuff in shows. Is that a phobia? It doesn't matter if it is or not. We're not going to change our mind because a bunch of bleeding pussy soy boys and cat ladies called us something. It's like of course, now it's phobic. Now, of course I'll watch your show now. Like, now I don't care. I mean, more or less anymore. It's like the people who are calling you this, I mean, you look at them and they look, like Gail Simone or something. You really don't care what they say. And phobia isn't really accurate, but it doesn't matter. The audience thinks it's the negative. These far left wing themes in the shows, which is another thing the left doesn't get, is they can't argue us into watching woke cancer. If there's a non-white lead, we're not interested. And what was Batwoman? DC Warner Brothers came out with that, and it was so bad. They spent $100 million on a movie, and it was so much garbage. Was that a female director too? God, everyone attached to that movie is probably just got a black spot next to their name. Like to make a movie that you had to like write it off, you had to destroy it for tax purposes because it was going to damage your reputation. That's embarrassing. But that was a POC female lead. It was like, yeah, Halle Berry in the 90s, even Halle Berry, as good looking as she was in the 90s, had a hard time. Was Catwoman in the 90s profitable? Probably not. This stuff isn't in a vacuum either. We've got decades of anti-white hatred, riots, and POC domestic terrorism. Why exactly would the audience want to see diversity on screen? Clearly, the different tribes do not like each other. They just spent the last 5 years tearing down statues and icons of the country's founders. TV and movies are supposed to be a break, but the Mary Sue thinks they can call the audience racist, and they'll give a shit. We don't. Why would we care? It's not real. It's just a manipulative technique. It's not really language. It's this superstructure control language. It might make the writers feel better, but it doesn't get people to watch your shows. Oh wait, does Disney own the rights to Doctor Who? I think they do. Like I said, it's a simple test. Could prove it. Take a show, remove the woke elements, which, hey, call me up. I would love to do it for you. Make it pure and wonderfully white, and it will do much better. Instead of a gay, black, trans, have a young English couple who are married with 6 kids. And like actually English. Just that simple difference makes the globalists shit their pants. Think of the spiritual difference with these optical differences. The one side is the left-hand path. It's death and decay, subversion and corruption. The broken branch ancestor weep. Because the reason why trans is or the BLT stuff in general is very dark, but the T is very dark because you're actually sterilizing people. If you remove the testicles, you've wiped out the future lineage. It's like a living death. I mean, it's really dark when you really start to look at it, which is why they try to normalize it. Nobody wants to see the story of a young BLT goes out on an adventure to fight the dragon and rescue his partner. I'm doing air finger quotes. And then they go settle down to a life of sodomy and cats who then proceed to eat them when they die alone without children, grandchildren, or family because they sodomize each other and they don't make babies that way. That's a dead-end story. It's hopeless without life. The right-hand path is a young English couple with 12 kids who are passing on their genes, their tribe and ceremony. They're connected to something. They're connected to the future of the universe to go forth and prosper. Don't you think it's weird that this is exactly what you don't see, the big white family anymore? If you are old enough, you probably remember 8 is Enough, or you might have saw it on reruns, or the Brady Bunch with 6 kids. Instead, they pushed, like in the 90s, Sex and the City was a big transition point for Hollywood. And I think that was, I got to admit, I've never seen a Sex and the City episode to completion. I saw like minutes of it. It was about single women in their 30s just being filthy whores. At least when the show started was in the 90s, and they were in their 30s. They're in their 60s now, and I think they still have a show out there. People don't know how bad the brainwashing is because it's been so pervasive for so long. Hollywood, or their overseas equivalent over in wherever UK, they blackwash everything and surprise Pikachu face when nobody watches it. Crikey, mate, this black doctor is just as British as we are. No, go to the sub-Saharan Africa and make a show about the white Zulu chief who solves the mystery of the missing witch doctor. Well, plot twist, they ate him. They twist their panties in outrage because then race matters. It matters to them But being European doesn't matter to them, which is why we're at an impasse with these failing shows, because we love ourselves, we love our tribe, just as they, presumably love their tribe. It matters to us, and if it didn't matter to them, they wouldn't change it. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.